All right, we're live.
Hey, my name is Aaron Holmes. I'm a first officer for Air Wisconsin Airlines, based in Dayton, Ohio.
Hey, man, welcome on the First Gen Pilot Podcast, and I really appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely, I'm excited to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we'll get into this right away. And the first question I like to ask is, how'd you get into aviation?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad is retired Navy. He's 21 years retired from the Navy. He was never a pilot himself, but he always enjoyed aviation kind of more as a hobby. So we would go to air shows when I was a child, and I think that really helped spark my interest. And so I just started accumulating anything I could get, the toys, Legos, posters, you name it, books, anything that I could get my hands on. And that's kind of where I started.
Yeah, definitely. So, you said your dad was in the military flying. So how did that kind of play a role with you becoming a pilot? So, like you said, you went out to the air shows. Like, did you guys do fun like flying together or anything like that?
Yeah, so he never flew himself, but I think he was always still just interested in it. And I fortunately had the opportunity to take that interest further. So, by bringing me to air shows, just kind of gave me the exposure. We lived near airports. I was born in Virginia, near an airport, or excuse me, a Navy base. And then we moved to Washington, D.C., and we lived right across the Potomac River from DCA, Ronald Reagan National. So I remember seeing the president's helicopters, flying over my house as a toddler. And then once we moved to Ohio, we only live a mile from the airport here, where we live. So all of that just really helped kind of get spark my interest. And it just led to me wanting to know more and being excited and just finding ways to immerse myself.
Okay, yeah. So let's kind of break down how you when you started your flight training and
Mhm.
how you kind of went by all the ratings.
Yeah, so I took a discovery flight for my 16th birthday. It was a gift. It was a Christmas gift that
Okay.
my parents got me. And I was very excited, but I had not, that was the first time I had flown an airplane. I had been a passenger many a times. So being at the controls for the first time, it was super exciting. And I realized that that was something I wanted to pursue further. So the path that I chose, and thank you to my mom for helping me out with that and doing the research for colleges and things like that. Um, I researched different schools that were in my area and went on some college visits. I ended up choosing Bowling Green State University to do my flight training there in a collegiate program, a Part 141 program, and that's how went through my training.
Yeah. So then, like, how old were you when you took that discovery flight?
Was 16. And then by the time I turned 18, I took a couple more lessons and quickly realized that I was not going to be able to afford them that way.
Yeah.
So I just waited until I got to college. So by the time fall 2017 rolled around, I was 18, and that's when I started the bulk of my flight training
Hmm.
with private. And I actually just yesterday was the sixth anniversary of my first solo flight. So it's crazy to see the full circle.
Yeah, definitely, man. I saw that post. It's kind of like a long journey, and you kind of look at it now. It's like everything was worth it.
It is worth it. Yeah. So I progressed and got my private by June 2nd of 2018, and then went on to do instrument by September the next year, commercial multi, commercial single, and then we did MEI first, multi and instructor as our
Okay.
initial CFI.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went to my CFI single engine add-on and my CF double I.
Yeah. I think we also do here the MEI first before the single.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. And then speaking of like paying for flight training, so like you said, you couldn't afford go being as a young kid there before college, and so coming into college, what was that like? Was there scholarship involved or like just loans?
Yeah, so for me personally, I was thankfully able to get a couple of scholarships from my local community, from my high school, from my local community here, and then the university also offered a couple of scholarships just based on your SAT, ACT score and getting admitted. They gave you some, and then I also had another one that was called AIMS, Academic Investment in Math and Sciences,
Hmm.
which is a scholarship focusing solely on minorities and women. and STEM fields. So that was a really huge part of my collegiate time. So along with those scholarships, it's not going to cover it all, unfortunately. So I do
Hmm.
have loans that I'm paying back. And probably in total, I probably spent 85 grand on the flight training alone
Okay.
without the college degree. And so some of that is loans, some of the scholarships, some of that's just, also straight out of pocket.
Yeah, definitely. And then so some of those scholarships, could you talk about a little bit of like if someone were to looking for them right now
Mhm.
and how they can go by to finding these scholarships?
Absolutely. So it starts as simple as a Google search, right?
Okay.
Especially the ones in your local community. They are simple as a Google search, scholarships in Ohio, for me personally, or scholarships in Minnesota, or whatever city that you're in, whatever state that you're in, just start there. And you'd be surprised how many things could come up. And then, as well as looking at your university, a lot of them will have a website where you can go through and scroll through different scholarships and see which ones that may be applicable to you, which some may not be, but it still might be worth your time to apply. A lot of those scholarships are usually due, before the end of a year, the calendar year. So definitely got to get on that and get those in. And you have to kind of make it a second job, if you would, of just sitting down and researching for them.
Yeah, definitely. You got to dedicate your time to get those scholarships. They say it's out there, but then like looking for them, it's a whole different story.
It is a whole different story, and it's a pain sometimes,
Right.
but it's as much of a pain as it is to sit there and research, and then obviously get the letters of recommendation or write the whatever essays they want you to write. It, keep a folder of all that information. That's what I did. I kept a folder, and then I just alter the words as necessary, or adjusted to who it was addressed to. But it's worth your time because it's money that you otherwise don't. It doesn't have to come out of your pocket.
Right. Yeah, it's free money and it's definitely gonna help you out with all this crazy expensive flight training expenses that you have to pay.
Absolutely. And I guess the last thing I'll add is, I mean, there's so many different aviation um, groups that also offer scholarships, the alphabet soup groups like the EAA or AOPA, or Women in Aviation, um, uh, you know, OBAP, Organization for Black Aerospace Professionals. Like those are so many different organizations that also offer scholarships to people who are interested.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right. And then so you did your flight training at the university and then how did you go by like building the time to get to your I'm guessing it was 1,000 hour restricted ATP there?
Yeah, so for the 141, Part 141 school, we could get the restricted ATP, which you may or may not be familiar with, but those who aren't, the typical ATP is 1,500. And
Yep.
so by doing 60 hours of aviation credit courses, approved courses, the amount of time I need to get an airline transfer pilot reduced to 1,000. So
Hmm.
after I got my, part of what I did to build my time was even after I got my private, I would just go and rent, with my friends, just
Yeah.
flying around for fun because especially when you're going through some of these programs that are a little bit faster paced or just really focused on getting progression, you have to find ways to have fun. So
Hmm.
just taking an airplane and going and flying around the sunset, times like that, helping
Oh
build
yeah.
time. I worked at a couple of different FBOs as well, or fixed based operators to just earn money, but as well as make connections and networks. So I would fly with guys who were there. I did a little bit of corporate on the side,
Okay.
and then the bulk of my flight time was being a flight instructor.
Okay. And then so the corporate side that you did, so what was that like?
So what was that like? So that was purely just word of mouth. So the operator of the aircraft, they had a TBM, and then during my time, they a TBM 700, and then they moved to a PC-12 NG. And all that was I was working at the FBO. The aircraft was kept there, parked there. And so whenever the pilot would come out, he was pilot manager of the airplane, small operation, just one man show, really. Whenever he
Hmm.
would come out to go fly, I would just talk with him and say, "Hey, this is where I'm at with my flight training," and we would just talk about stuff. He's been around the area for a long time. I'm certainly not the first, won't be the last person,
Yeah.
that he's gonna interact with. Um, so it was nice to have those conversations with him. And then, the day came where he had offered me the opportunity to come and fly with him. So we would fly down to Columbus and pick up the passengers from the company and then take them to where they would need to be. and
Okay.
usually it would be a day trip.
Yeah, and then like so like how many hours were you sitting at when like you got that opportunity?
How many hours was I sitting at? So after I had
Yeah.
my commercial single engine, because that's
Okay.
all he had wanted. So there was no um, official job application or
Yeah.
anything like that. It was more so, hey, just send me a resume so I can see what your hours look like, what you've got working.
Yep.
But as far as the FAA is concerned, a commercial single engine is all that is needed, and
Right.
the TBM PC-12 both don't require a type rating, although
Yep.
you do need high performance, high altitude endorsement, complex
Mm-hmm.
endorsement to operate those aircraft. So
Mm-hmm.
I had the endorsements and such, and then he helped me get my high altitude endorsement. So I think
Okay.
I was right around, I don't know, I want to say maybe 250, somewhere in that range, maybe 300. So it wasn't a ton of time, but it was more so he was also a flight instructor. So he has been comfortable flying with me and still being there helping along.
Yeah, definitely. It all comes down to networking, like talking to people, introducing yourself to everybody that's out there. And you never know when something's going to fall in your
You
lap like
never
that.
know. You
Yeah.
never know. Like, and that's the hard part is like you have to be so comfortable with being uncomfortable and
Right.
just going and approaching people and not in a weird way, but just saying, "Hi, my name is blank, and this is a really cool airplane. Do you mind if I see it?" And even just starting that conversation goes such a long way.
Yep.
And I'm fortunate that I was able to work at a few different FBOs where just interacting with the people who kept their airplanes on the airfield or that would fly in for gas, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would always just take an opportunity to talk with them and ask them, what career opportunities look like at their operation, their company. I ultimately decided on the airlines, but I also know corporate is a really nice side of the business, and
Mm-hmm.
that was an opportunity that if I wanted to take, it could have been there.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's all great experiences you got to where you are right now. It's definitely gonna build
Absolutely.
upon each other. All right, and then so let's talk about scary experiences that you've had throughout your flight training and as a flight instructor. Do you have any crazy moments that you've been in?
Who doesn't? Yeah, definitely. I remember the first lesson that I gave. I was teaching at a Part 61 operation. Um, I'm not sure how this scheduling happened, but I got scheduled with an instrument student. I didn't have my CFII yet, so they were like, "Oh,
Okay.
we'll just swap students. You can go with this other guy." And it was his check ride prep flight, and so I just kind of thought that was interesting. Okay, so my first lesson, I'm preparing this guy for a check ride, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but that's okay. So just learning experiences like that. But other times that I've been in it is I have an incident myself, on takeoff out of an airport, experienced wind shear. There's trees that surround the airfield, and so as I was departing, we had a crosswind that shifted more to a tailwind to the point where we weren't going to clear those trees. So decided to abort the takeoff and land on what was remaining, and that resulted in a runway excursion, and that was probably, in all seriousness, the scariest moment that I've ever had.
Yeah.
But it just kind of faults it back to like, okay, just the training that we were given and the decision making that we're taught, that was what helped me there.
Yeah, definitely. It all comes down to your training that whatever like you learn. Like we do a lot of emergencies and being in those situations. I mean, it's different when you're doing like when you're in the situation, but
Right.
learning about them and being familiar with it definitely helps you out when you are in those situations.
Yeah, that's what I say. I just can't. I'm never saying ever make bad decisions or do things that are in any way dangerous, but going out of your comfort zone a little bit in terms of, okay, I have my CFI with me who's comfortable. Let me try in a day where there is a little bit more wind or where the clouds are lower, all within the limitations of you and your airplane.
Hmm.
But you have to find ways to kind of push yourself because, especially once you get to that next level, when I started doing some of the corporate stuff, I was like, wow, I mean, there's stuff that we would never be flying in our single engine piston,
Yeah.
but there's a job that needs to get done, and we just do it. And there's ways to get around that safely.
Yeah, exactly. Like we talk about pushing yourself, like a kid who's doing a solo right now, it's like that's them pushing themselves like to their limit almost because they have to get over that. Like learning to fly by yourself, like you had to learn how to be basically you're getting paid now, you got to fly into these situations, you got to be smart and then do get the job done.
Absolutely. I mean, and
Yeah,
like you said, it definitely starts with those first solos, and but
yeah,
it's all of that it builds up to get you where you are in the end.
yeah, definitely. All right, and then talk to us a little bit about the switch from being a flight instructor and your corporate job to being at an airline. So, what was that like flying this big jets from like a piston engine or like a single engine that you were flying before?
So what really helped in the transition was because I did have the exposure to the TBM and PC-12. I
Hmm.
had the opportunity to fly something that was a little bit bigger than what I was flying. I did all of my primary training in Warriors, Archers, Seminoles.
Hmm.
So fantastic aircraft by Piper, absolutely fantastic airplanes for training,
Yep.
but it is not a CRJ. It's not a
Yeah.
737.
Yeah.
So having the little bridge in terms of having something with more power and performance in the TBM and PC-12 aircraft really helped when it came time to flying the CRJs in the sim and in the real world.
Hmm.
So the I got really comfortable with flying the Piper aircraft. I could take it into in situations, weather situations, or performance, and just really know it like the back of my hand. And so now I'm having to readjust and learn that now with the CRJ to where it's not, I'm thinking really hard. Everything just comes as second nature. Um, and I think some of the things that I've seen people, myself included, at times is just adjusting to how the automation works, how the avionics are working, what the performance is, how do we calculate stuff. Just being familiar with those kinds of procedures, like I said, so it becomes second nature. So even now, I just got done with a 3-day trip this past weekend, and it was windy and low ceilings every day, and icing conditions, and so I'm still learning how to land this aircraft appropriately in crosswinds. As much as I enjoy it, it's still a challenge. So you just have to be patient with yourself. It's going to take time to get there.
Yeah, definitely. So would you say it's like any other like we talked about earlier a little bit, like I'm doing a Seminole now, so that feeling that you have, or like when you first starting your flight training, are you kind of feeling like that when you like making this transition, or is it more of like, okay, I've been flying for a while now, this is kind of like, the basics and kind of apply that?
So yeah, so that's it's a perfect example. Jumping from the single engine to a multi-engine, regardless of the manufacturer, that is a little bit more power behind you. Now the
Okay.
gear moves. There's an extra lever inside there. There's doubles of everything. There's more gauges.
Yep.
And so in some ways it can feel slightly overwhelming because now you have to find a way to divert your attention amongst multiple streams. And I really enjoyed flying the Seminole at first, but it was definitely one of these things where I was like, wow, this is, there's more stuff that can get me now, right?
Yeah.
And so as you make that transition multiple times, it is flying at the end of the day. Like, crosswind landings I still need to line the nose with the center line
Yeah.
and make sure my ailerons turn into the wind. And that's regardless of what size of airplane.
Right.
But as you move into something that's bigger or faster than what you have before, just be patient with yourself and ask the questions. Let your instructor know when you are struggling or that you don't get something.
Yeah, definitely. Don't ever be scared to ask questions and like learn it. Just come up with a open-minded learning, try and learn everything, and
Yeah.
that's definitely going to help you a lot.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes there's an ego problem in our industry where people don't want to open up about not understanding stuff or being vulnerable about, hey, I don't get this and I need help. And I sometimes I wish people would be more willing to do that. So if you're okay with admitting such a thing, the help can be given. Like even now, I still fly with captains who they ask me questions, I ask them questions, they have my back, I have their back, and that should never change.
Yeah, like in the aviation, there's so much to learn. Like it's like you're learning something pretty much every day. Like, and you have to let that happen because if you say, "Oh, I already know enough," then that's definitely gonna hurt you, man. Because you don't really. You gotta
No,
keep that open mindset.
right? That's what we talk about, those hazardous attitudes that your
Exactly.
instructor
Yeah.
has probably always told you about.
Definitely, man. All right, and then um, let's talk about if you were to go back and redo your whole journey again. What are the things that you do differently, and what are the things that you do the same?
If I were to go back and do it all again, so
Yep.
I mean, like I said, my dad was interested in aviation and my mom had helped me do the research, but they had no aviation background in terms of doing any flight training. So from the very start, I would have just asked more questions to the people who were in it. And thankfully, we have figured it out. But just really seeking more of that guidance from the beginning,
Yep.
um, and finding ways to get that guidance would have, I think, would have helped. Something else that I would have done differently would have been just pushing more to get what I needed or what I wanted, and not just taking what's given. So,
Hmm.
especially in some of these larger programs, it can be easier to just be a number instead of an individual, right? You are one of multiple, and they are there trying to get you guys all through, but what you may need is different than the person sitting next to you. And
Yep.
so being comfortable with speaking up and saying that this isn't working for me, either we're moving too fast or we're moving too slow, I can handle more or I need less, just speaking up about those types of things. Um, and then I think the last thing as well is just figuring out, especially as this is regardless of what you do and whatever you're in school for, training for, figuring out how you learn best. So I am a really big fan of YouTube. As we sit
Yeah.
here in the background, I got a live stream going on of LA Explain spotting. So I love just just sitting watching YouTube, but
Yeah.
learning from a lot of those people, just sitting and watching people go through their flights. And I could name a ton of like Citation Max, for example, a really nice guy. I met Max at AirVenture in Oshkosh, and he
Hmm.
posts a lot of really good videos that I was able to watch and just really helped me learn, okay, this is how instrument flying is done. This is the crisp, smooth nature of the procedures, things like that. So learning by, videos or podcasts, finding out however you learn, whatever that is going to be very helpful to you being successful.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like we talk about this. Like for me, for example, like reading is not gonna do it for me. Like I have to physically see the thing.
Yeah.
I have to
Yes.
like hear it and like interact with it basically. So YouTube actually helped me a lot too. I mean, like just watching those videos, imitating them, and then going doing it. It's definitely what helped me a lot. Like reading it on the book. Like I don't know what that
It's
means.
hard.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
hard.
it's
It's
difficult.
hard to
Yeah,
bring that into real world. I mean, that was always one of my favorite things as a flight instructor was,
yeah,
okay, we just read about a carburetor, but have you ever seen a carburetor? Have you ever seen the fuel injection? Let's actually go to the maintenance hangar where
right.
everything is taken apart and let's look
Mhm.
at it. Let's point it out. Let's ask
Exactly.
these people who work on the airplanes every day, hey,
Yeah,
can you show me this? Or I have a question about this.
yeah. That's definitely gonna boost your learning curve and it's definitely gonna learn a lot more. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, and then like so, let's talk about if you had any failures throughout your flight training, any written tests or check rides, and have those determined you getting a job or not getting a job in the end?
So 6 out of my 8 check rides was with one individual, the same DP examiner. Really
Okay.
appreciate and enjoy working with him.
Hmm.
So I failed 2 check rides. The first was my commercial multi.
Okay.
I in the pattern when he went to go and fail one of my engines, quote unquote fail one of my engines. I didn't react fast enough. I just kind of froze and didn't react fast enough and did the wrong thing. So then that kind of got to me for the rest of the. I still wanted to continue the flight, but then I did another really small action of not putting in the right frequency for the VOR. We did a VOR approach, and I
Okay.
just didn't even put the frequency in the active side. So I had to go back and redo those 2 items, the takeoff and landing portion, and then go back and do that approach. So really
Okay.
small things,
Right.
but they still count. So that was helpful of my case to just learn to like, don't be so nervous. Just take it like even if you make a mistake, like you could keep going. You can keep going and still continue. The second check ride that I didn't pass was my CFI single engine add-on. Um, Doing the power off 180 approach. And I'm so glad I won't really have to do these again. But I was now in that case it's different when the CFI check rides. You're teaching as well as flying the airplane. And
Hmm.
that given moment, I spent too much time trying to teach or explain instead of just flying the airplane. And
Right.
I ended up coming short on the mark, that I chose for that maneuver. So
Yeah.
had to go back and do that portion again. Again, small things that don't mean that I don't know what I'm doing, but it was still something I had to go back and do again.
Yep.
So how did those help me now? I mean, it's still something I always have to disclose whenever I'm in a job interview, and I have no problem doing that because they will
Hmm.
find it.
Yeah.
They'll know.
Yep.
They will know. So it is just to me, it's just really shown how much I can. One, that you're not always going to be perfect. But then two, just how I just need to take my time, really, focus and get the job done in an efficient but accurate manner.
Yeah, definitely. It's always those like during check rides, it's very nerve wracking that sometimes you'll miss the easiest thing that you'll never miss, and just
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's just over, it's a lot at the same time, and it's not like you mentioned, like it's not gonna hurt you as long as you talk about it and explain what happened, and basically you'll be set.
That's right. I mean, and even now, for any other check rides and things that I have, it just I chair fly because I always think about those incidents. I'm like, I don't want to repeat that. Those are
No.
such small things. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
Where so chair fly, scenario, talk through it. Make a setup of your cockpit, sit in the airplane that's on the ground in the cockpit, touch. I mean, whatever you got to do
Yep.
to make sure that you don't fall into those situations.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and then so let's talk about your end goal. So you're an airline right now, an airline pilot, and so where do you see yourself? Like in the end, where do you see yourself as a pilot?
Yeah, so for me right now, so flying Sierra J200s, so it's an airplane that a lot of people say like you'll be cutting your teeth with. You're definitely and there's a lot more manual things in this airplane. The
Yeah.
automation is not as far as some other aircraft, but just totally okay. They're still safe. They're still fun to fly.
Hmm.
Um, but I ideally would love to move on to flying with United. They have a local base to me. They have a Cleveland base, and that would be really huge in terms of where I located in Ohio. So that would be nice, or with Delta or something like that. I'm not too picky on aircraft type. I'll take what I can get, and
Yeah.
especially in general, taking the first class state. I mean, it's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten is take the first class state that you can get because seniority is everything in this field.
Yeah, definitely. And then so like so with the airline you're with right now, so like how was the application process like and like applying for these jobs and picking them?
It's tedious. You have to really take your time putting in the information
Hmm.
because they will find and expose things that are inaccurate by the time they do your background check or what have you, or they're going to ask you questions about things that you have put on there. So really make sure that you're not only familiar with what's there, but that all of it is there. It's accurate. So um, I used airline apps in terms to fly, or excuse me, to apply to regional carriers. But a lot of the mainline carriers, they have their own portals for that. So I'm kind of working through, putting stuff in there. There's different ways to study the information that may come up on interviews. So definitely take your time and treat it like it's the potential, you know, place that you want to spend your career at. You want to take the time to make sure you're doing it right.
Yep, exactly. All right, and then also let's talk about staying motivated through flight training. As we both
Mhm.
know, it can be very challenging, be when you're flight training. So, what are some things that you did that helped you out?
Yeah, it definitely can be because, like I talked about before, when you're just, day in and day out trying to push through and study or get flights done, it can feel a little monotonous or repetitive. But for me, like I said, it was always going to rent and just find ways to have fun with flying to
Hmm.
where it wasn't like I was always training. We could just go and get the probably now $200 hamburger and just go see the sunset or
Yeah.
go fly with someone who has a cool airplane. Um, that was always fun for me. I still love going to air shows now. Still going to Oshkosh, just still go to a couple of different local air shows each year and just sitting and watching planes, going to the airport, watching airplanes, listen to podcasts or watching YouTube videos. Like I said, I still do that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So for some people, that may mean getting away from aviation altogether. If that means that you need, in order to not burn out, you need to go fishing, whatever
Yeah.
that is.
Right.
Um, Because if there's a point where you're not enjoying it and it's not fun, then it's not going to be as productive. So take whatever time you need to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Like you won't even progress as much as you want if you're getting burnt out. You got to go around, look at things that if it's aviation related, go do that. And like you mentioned, it can be totally not aviation related, like fishing or anything else that you can do.
Absolutely. I mean, and like I said, I just wish sometimes that people would remember that. Like, you don't have to go to the airport every day if you don't want to go to the airport. Like,
Yeah.
take a day off. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely like reset, go do something else and come back to it. And
that's right.
that might be the only the thing that you needed the most, like just taking a couple days off.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. And then so last question is so if there's someone out there trying to get into aviation right now or if they're already pursuing their dream, what are some tips that you have for them?
Yeah, so this is something that I definitely am passionate about too, is just finding ways to go and expose more people to the field and bring them in, and
Hmm.
or help anyone that's already in it, and always allowing myself to be open for questions. So tips that I would say is like I said, go and find someone who knows what they're doing, who's already in the
Hmm.
field, and ask them questions. Find a way to make them your contact for whenever something comes up that you're like, I don't know what this means, or I have a question about this. Find someone to help you in that regard. Don't be afraid to do that.
Hmm.
Um, Additionally, find ways to get involved. So the networking we talked about is so important. So find ways to get involved. I did flight team in college. I was in Alpha Eta Rho, which is the International Aviation Fraternity.
Yeah.
And then I was an ambassador for my school. So I always found ways to network with not only students coming in, but other students who are in equal spot as me, and then future potential employers that, now I could just, friends that I could send a text to, send a phone call and be like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't know what this means. I don't know how to bid. Can you help, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so as long as you find ways to do that, and then almost repeating again what I said before, finding how you learn. If you can find out how you learn best, you will save yourself so much time and anxiety or pressure of like, I'm not getting it, or this is not fun. Or you got to find ways to make it fun and exciting.
Yeah, definitely. You also save a lot of money too.
Oh man, the money is it's always there. It's always there.
Oh yeah. I agree, man. All right, and then so we'll end this with a would you rather game. So I'll give you a couple
Hmm.
options, and then you just pick one from it.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so would you rather fly general aviation or commercial?
It's always a tough one, but I feel like the GA world is general aviation is second to none. You got freedom.
Yeah,
You can do whatever you want.
definitely, man. I agree. All right, and then so would you rather fly over beaches or mountains?
Beaches are pretty, and I would love to fly along the coast on either side.
Okay, yeah. And then would you rather fly high wing or low wing?
Low wing until at the end of time. I know this will start some debates, but low wings are just they're pretty.
Yeah, they're. I like them both.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. So then would you rather fly Airbus or Boeing?
I don't know. Do you want a side stick or do you want a yoke? I'll take Boeing as a pilot, but I think as a passenger,
Mhm.
Airbus.
Okay, yeah, that's doable. And then would you rather fly IFR or VFR?
IFR. I really enjoy the procedural aspect of IFR, and it's a ballet that just works, and it's really crazy when you can see it all in action.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. That's all I have for you. Thanks so much for coming on, man. You're so an inspirational person, and I really loved hearing your story. It was really great having you on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, and definitely feel free to follow me, reach out, aholmes825 on Instagram or TikTok. I love to interact and talk.
Yeah, man. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Hey, have a good one.
All right. Hit pause.